Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to Songs of Six. This is a city builder, a rather massive city builder, in fact, with a very in-depth citizen management and detailing as well, and quite a lot of interesting little mechanics and features that I want to show off today. In fact, I already covered this game a couple of years ago or something like that. It's been a while and the game has come a long way since then, and I felt like it deserved another look, so that is exactly what we are doing today. Here we are currently following Archibald Redash, because his name spoke to me somehow for some mysterious reason, no doubt. He's a 25-year-old human citizen proudly serving in my empire, kingdom, city, whatever you want to call it, as a scribe. His general health is good. His height is 7.3 taiths, whatever the hell that means. But he doesn't want to be measured because it's a bit of a personal thing, frankly. And he's a pinch dirty as well. Now, this might seem like pointless fluff, but it actually gives me some information about how my city is currently running. The fact that he's dirty, for example, tells me that I might not have enough wells and bathhouses around. It might also simply be that he hasn't found a spare moment to wash up yet. Now, what is very interesting is he's currently finding food, but he's going to the warehouse to find food. That means that I haven't put down enough cantinas and eateries around because they're not supposed to go here. This is the shittiest place they could possibly go to find themselves a pickle in a barrel somewhere, just, up by the mountainside. I can also tell that he's pretty damn well supplied with tools. His clothing supplies, however, is not up to snuff either, so I do have a couple of things I need to fix. And if you want to see more in-depth details, you can also see it in the properties. You can see that he recently ate, but his fulfillment for hunger isn't actually all that good, because again, he had to eat it out of a barrel rather than at a cafeteria, and if you want even more of a breakdown, well, here you go. Like I said, the game has a pretty in-depth management of the civilians, but if you don't want to engage with that, you don't actually have to. As over here, as the game finishes saving, we see the happiness of the various population groups in the city in total. So I have 1,486 humans, and they are very happy overall at the moment. They're quite pleased. In fact, there's 146 additional humans that would love to immigrate to my city. The Dondorians, the little dwarves, are equally happy, and the Tilapi, my murderous wood elves, also quite enjoy themselves here. They too want to immigrate in significant proportions. You can also give them various little bonuses like handouts or free drinks or declared days off, for example, if you so choose as well. And obviously, your humans, or Tilapi, or Dondorians, are your primary workforce resource in your city. They're the ones who till your enormous fields. They're the ones who work in your ranches, in your asylums, in your temples, in your diamond mines and jewelry shops. Without people, none of these things function, and for the majority of the game, dudes are your primary resource, as getting them into your city is actually not necessarily all that simple, because you have to satisfy quite a lot of needs. Not only do you have to give them food, obviously, they will eventually start whining about alcoholic beverages. They might have special preferences for foods, like some races prefer mushrooms, others prefer fruit, or fish, or meat, or bread, or cucumbers, or eggs, you name it. Others might have specific needs as well, like clothing, which means you need to start growing some cotton, which then needs to be turned into fibers, or fabric, which then needs to be turned into actual clothing. Or maybe you could take it the lazy way and use leather to make shittier clothing out of it. Eventually, they'll start whinging at you for furniture to make all of their little houses happy and wappy looking, because the houses will evolve visually as they gain various ingredients to make them look better. For example, I'm pretty sure we have got some empty longhouses somewhere. Maybe not. Well, you can get a decent look at it anyway. So you can see here, this is a Tilapy house. So the Tilapy want certain things, like they would love livestock, for example. They like clay and fabric and wood and stone and pottery, but they don't care over much about cut stone, whereas the Dondorians, the dwarves, would love some more cut stone. And the Dondorians, the Kratorians, excuse me, they need lots of mud, but they don't give a real shit about cut stone, frankly. You can also see that in the interior decor as it changes from the various species that are inhabiting the house at the moment. Now, furniture you can assign to your populace via the Citizens tab here. For example, if I go to just the Dondorians, you'll see that this is the things that they want, whereas the Tilapy, they want these things, and the humans want these things. You can also select overall access, but the thing is, you gotta produce enough of it. For example, if I was to try and produce or deliver furniture to everyone, I would need 13,512 pieces of furniture. I've only got 2,000. That's a lot of furniture. That is a ridiculous quantity of furniture. Not as ridiculous a quantity as 308 gems, mind you, as that too is a fairly hilarious quantity, though probably something I could potentially do at this point, as I am swimming in cash at the moment with a $1 million treasury. As of course, the game isn't merely a city simulator either, you've also got a full world map. This is my city, this is my territory, and this is the entire rest of the world. It's pretty goddamn massive. It is specced with other little villages who have their own population numbers, their own exports, and their own way of running their civilization. So, for example, there will be caravans, so in this case, flotilla, carrying various exports out of the city. The various cities will export and import various things, and that will in turn determine the value of an object on the world market. So currently, for example, one of my primary exports is good old-fashioned drugs, as we go down to my opium fields here. Opium is quite profitable. It is not great to produce in this particular area as the fertility is sorta low, but I am producing enough of it to the point where it doesn't matter. In fact, opium was pretty much my primary export for the longest time, only mildly supplemented by leather and a little bit of furniture here and there. Whereas now, my primary money makers really is jewelry. So this is usually not a very good idea, but I import gems. Now, importing gems is usually ruinous because the buy price is 543, whereas the sell price is 668. Not the most amazing of margins, but that's only after I've poured enormous quantities of research into both upping my own prices, increasing the efficiency of the production scheme, etc., etc. Previously, it would have cost me 2 to 1, at least, to start making jewelry, but once you get enough technology up and running, and once you get a decent little gem mine up with upgrades too, it becomes less hilariously ruinous. But the cool thing about the game is you kind of have to be part of the overall ecosystem, because currently I am importing a lot of stuff. I'm importing bread, I was importing stone, I'm importing drink, I'm importing pottery, I was importing metal, I've recently become more or less self-sufficient in that. I am importing mushrooms, and I am importing fish, and I am importing occasionally cucumbers, though right now I am swimming in the damn thing, so not a problem. It might have something to do with the recent purges, incidentally, because here's the thing. When it comes to workforces, you don't only have citizens like Alora Red Wyvern here, who, let's see, is he happy with everything? Yes, he's happy with the city in general, but he does have some suggestions. Better access to arenas, pull your pants up, please. Well, thank you, but I prefer them down, actually. It is customary for a great rule to pardon a prisoner from time to time. It lifts the spirits of all those wrongfully convicted. And the city needs some more entertainment. Alright, well, I do actually happen to have a Dondorian in jail right now. Charge of vandalism, not the worst thing in the world. In fact, I think, we could pardon him. That'll make everybody a little bit happier. Now, it'll piss off the people who went to the arena to watch him be beat to death, but, you know, one problem at a time. In fact, I've got a bit of a poor prisoner flow right now. How can we fix that? Well, I mentioned alternative sources of labor, like, for example, the slave population, primarily of Kryptonians. Right. Well, as I don't have enough people to work in the arena right now, we're going to keep their execution rates at 0, because I don't want to kill them, but I do want a few of them to be in jail. But I do also want a few more slaves as well. This will be a decent little proportion, and I don't think pig people deserve freedom. So let's initiate some prosecution, shall we? That should fix many of my problems. I'm going to increase the number of jailers and slavers as well for a second there, because well, they're going to be busy, very busy. This will cause my guards stationed around certain points of the city in guard posts to start being on the lookout for pig people with too much liberty in their body, and will start reducing the number of free pig people in the population and increasing the number of prisoners in my jail system. Perfect. This in turn will begin feeding the slave pens, which will convert the pig people into brand new servants. Now, the benefit of servants is, of course, that, well, they're not quite as fuzzy as your average run-of-the-mill citizenry, and can be fed considerably less than your average run-of-the-mill citizenry, while still remaining relatively happy, since, actually, the happiness meter for slaves isn't really happiness, it's submission, keeping them under control. Now, make no mistake, they will rise up and try and murder you if you ever give them half a chance, but, a sizable garrison along with good amounts of guards, and the fact that you outnumber them quite heavily, usually manages to keep them in decent control. Speaking of, I've forgotten to build pillars in my slave pit. Let me do that as well. The benefit of the Dondorians, I keep calling them Dondorians, the Kryptonians as well, is that they're absolutely excellent farmers. And as you can see, I need farmers. I have a hilarious amount of farming going on, and this isn't even enough, mind you. This isn't even close to enough, but, one step at a time, I suppose. As the various factions also have various abilities surrounding various jobs. They also have various happiness requirements around various jobs as well. For example, let's see here. Which one was the jobs menu again? Which one was... there we go. So, the Kryptonian slaves are currently set to based on work skill, which means they prioritize working on farms, working in my fisheries, for example. Now, they love working on the farms, but they're not quite as happy about the mushroom farms or the herb farms on the fisheries, so that goes a little bit against their interest. Whereas free Dondorians are focused around priorities based on fulfillment, so they will first and foremost do jobs that make them happy, which are things like working in the gem mines, or the Silthian mines, or the carpenters and the jewelers, etc. You can also further improve jobs by handing out tools. For example, I've given lots of tools to the laboratories, some to the warehouses, and lots to the administration. Tools, in turn, needs to be produced continuously by your smithies, which are all the way up here deep inside the mountain, where the smithies are producing, the smelters are producing metal ore from coal and ore. I'm importing ludicrous amounts of ore too, by the way, which then get turned into things like tools and weapons and armor. I'm currently doing alright on these two, although my stocks are falling a little bit since last time I looked at them, primarily because I'm stocking up for a military expedition to my neighbors, because, well, I need more slaves. 424 might sound like a lot, but considering the population of my other species, no. I need a lot more Kryptonian slaves, and this latest batch, well, it'll help, but it just ain't enough. And if you can't enslave your real citizens, you're gonna have to find other people's citizenry to enslave. But before we do that, my meat production has gone up a little bit, but I'm going to create a little bit more meat production before we go off on any military adventure. So the quickest way to do this is to use the Room Copier tool, a really nice tool, which allows you to simply just remake an entire room or production facility. In this case, it is the Auroch Pasture. So we're gonna set a few of these up. Try and maximize space, as it is becoming a little bit of a premium commodity at the moment, as I have expanded across quite a lot of my starting area. Around about like so. That'll give me another few pastures. Now, your populace that are going to be working in these places also need homes, of course, and they need homes relatively close by where they're going to be working. Your species also have preferences in terms of privacy. The tilapia and the humans, for example, prefer quite a lot of privacy, and since they are the ones that are going to be mostly working in these encampments, we're going to use simple apartments, which are the smallest and most private accommodations I can currently offer. So we're going to build a bunch more of these, and we're going to build it in this general area because I do have a fair few services up and running here, so this is the best place to do so. If I wanted to accommodate more citizens per house, I could use houses, which are a decent, middle-of-the-road solution. Quite a bit of privacy, but not perfect. Whereas the dormitory and the longhouses provide very little privacy, which is actually preferred by races like the Crotonians, for example, which like living in huge dormitory buildings. Now, this will eventually draw the attention of my odd jobbers, which is the workforce not dedicated to any specific job in particular. For example, at the cantina here, I have 9 employees. Those are 9 cooks. Cooking is all they do. And over time, they will actually increase in experience and become better cooks. Whereas the odd jobbers, they do stuff like this. So we're going to speed up things a little bit here. And you'll see they start swarming into the area. And first they're going to clear the ground. So they're going to clear it of rocks and turf and all of the sorts of nonsense that might get in the way. Then they will provide lumber or timber or wood or whatever you prefer to create the outer walls. If it requires any kind of internal structures, they will also begin providing those, like special ingredients like furniture or fabric or paper or metal or anything and whatever. In the case of simple houses and pastures, as you can see as I hover my mouse over it, the primary ingredients are just simple wood, and so they're going out to fetch just wood. Whereas if we go up here to have a look at my under construction temple, my ridiculously expensive temple, you'll see lots of little warning icons because it's lacking several resources. In the case of this one, it's requiring fine cut stone, silthrin, and jewelry. This is a stupidly expensive undertaking that I've started now, only because I'm fairly far into the video game, so, alright. We're going to need cut stone. In fact, we're going to need a lot of cut stone because I'm also upgrading the roads here because I want to give more ore to my populace. So, you can import them via the logistical system, like this, but you have trade stations that have certain quotas on selling and buying. For example, I'm currently selling 25% of the total warehouse stock of tools. So every time a set of tools is added to my warehouses that is above 20%, it'll be delivered here and it'll be sold for a price. Whereas I'm currently importing cotton. So every time my storehouses fall beneath a certain percent, I'll begin importing more cotton to keep my cotton mills running. You can also choose to manually import something by buying it now. This is not as effective, it's going to cost you quite a lot of money in fact, and it's not something you should be doing unless you gotta. I have to. So we're going to spend 132,000 to buy 4,000 cut stone. That'll be delivered as quickly as possible. You can choose cheapest or closest to determine price and delivery time. I am also going to need a little bit of jewelry, which is not the worst thing in the world because, of course, I can sell that again if necessary. So I'm going to buy not that much. No. I'm going to buy... What? I needed 50 odd. Okay, I'm going to buy A then. It'll give me a little bit of a bank. And I am also going to need some Silthian ore. That's the real bother. So, silthium, or Sicilian, this is a strange, specific, glowing metal. It's warpstone, essentially, except for some reason it's beloved by the dwarves. The dwarves would love it if I allowed them to actually put it inside of their houses. In fact, you can see there, they would like 8 pieces of Silthian ore, but it's stupidly expensive and stupidly slow to produce. I have 56 workers in this quarry right here. They're only producing 1.3 a day of this nonsense. And if I go to actually purchase it, which I'm going to need about 40 odd. Let's see, where's the Silthian ore? There it is. Alright, that's going to cost me, how much for one? 727. Right, okay. We'll buy 140 then, just to have a little bit. That'll finally finish up the temple, which will allow them to pray, as the various species also, of course, have preferential deities as well, obviously. Plus, if you go to the world map, there are certain havens scattered around the map. So, the Shrine to Hammersworth, for example, over here. They've got specific objectives that you need to fulfill, like so-and-so much religion, or access to ore, or laws, or Athurism, which is the religion of the dwarves. Once these requirements are complete, and you control the zone, which is the more difficult part, the populace of these settlements will come join you. Now, there's only 13 people here, so that's not very valuable, is it? Well, it is, because these are special species. The Cantors and the Argonosh are basically giants, and they're enormously good at what they do, and they're amazing soldiers. Like, one of them is worth like 10 lesser dudes, so they make incredibly good shock troops. As you also need to create your own armies in this game as well, and give them training facilities, set up logistical supply lines for them, etc, etc, etc. Now, once we're making the Auroch pastures over here, we also need to lay out some roads for them. So this is going to be a fairly high traffic area, so let's place down some nice stone roads to speed up movement. And we've got a bunch over here too. We'll make that 2 wide. There we go. That'll give a little bit of movement. You can also see it highlights the areas in which there's a lot of traffic to give you an idea of where you might want to consider placing down some roads in the future. That'll help out a bit. As these begin producing, they will require livestock, of course, to be placed in them. Then they will begin producing things like leather and meat, which will be picked up by the warehouses, and the warehouses will then be used as distribution centers. I'll increase the numbers here a little bit, to supply the various supply buildings, like the cantina, for example. Now, let's see. Is there anything people in this, well... apparently, one person died of old age. Well, it's the best way to go in this awful world of ours. And he'll be dragged off to a cemetery where he'll be buried. Criminals, incidentally, are thrown into mass graves instead. Whereas good people will be put in the cemeteries, presuming there's space, of course. I do need to increase bow production again. Let's hire an additional 10 people to fulfill demand right there. Let's see. I don't have a bathhouse in the area, do I? No, I do not. I have one up here, but another bathhouse down here might not be the worst idea. So this area is going to be servicing a lot of tilapia. So let's make ourselves a bathhouse, and we're going to make it out of wood, because the tilapia prefer wood, and they prefer their structures to be organically shaped, as you can see here. Organic versus square. So humans prefer square buildings, tilapia prefer them to be nice, rounded, and organic. And we'll put down a few basins. See, can we squeeze down? We can squeeze in another one here, right? Maybe not. Fair enough. Right. Now that can service 26 people with 26 baths. Now, in reality, the capacity is a lot higher than that, because they will be continuously recharging the baths. But I could need I've only got 46 relaxation. So this is the secondary stat. You should also have the secondary stat be as high as possible to make sure that you get the maximum effect out of the room. Essentially, it's a bonus modifier. We're going to change the shape a little bit here. We're also going to put down some support structures to make sure that everything is up and running. You can build the room without these, incidentally, but it'll increase the upkeep cost of the room. So if the room isn't built to, handle its own weight, you're going to require a lot more resources to maintain it and to services and rebuild it and check for damages, etc. So preferably, you always want to make sure that there is plenty of support so that your houses don't collapse on you. Alright, that'll give me a bench there, and it'll give me a bench there, and there we go, 100% relaxation. Perfect. We'll place... Oh, we need a doorway. Yeah, that's a good idea. Make one there, one there, one there, and one there. Perfect. Let's also set up a quick little road up to that too. There, that'll provide my tilapia and my nearby people with a little bit of relaxation as well. We do have a cantina in the area, so that's not a problem. I don't have a tavern in the area, I don't think. No, I don't see a tavern icon. Okay, let's put down a tavern icon as well then. That's in entertainment. And since we've got a bit of a mixed population here, we're going to make that a grand building, and we're going to make it squared as preferred by the human populace to try and please both parties. God damn it. There, plenty of support. Alright, I should probably make that a bit wider, shouldn't I? Well, I can also change the type of it into this, which makes it a bit better. There you go. And there, 22 customers, that's not too bad. And then some knickknacks for coziness score. There we are. A nice little tavern can begin construction as well. Again, the odd jobbers will begin moving in to prepare delivering all of the various resources as required. They should... has the cutstone arrived yet? It has not. Okay, we're going to wait a little bit for that then. You can also see all of the little guys running around doing their nonsense continuously, as they'll be seeking out the various services they want, like cantinas, or baths, or entertainment, or eateries, or lavatories, or whatever it is. Oh, slavery. Well, I did want more Crotonian slaves, but, I do feel a little bit greedy, a little bit niggardly at the moment, so I don't know if I want to pay for them, especially as there is a source of slaves relatively nearby. Yes, that is correct. Have I managed to empty out the prisons? I've got 32 out of 96 at the moment. It's a little bit crowded almost. Would I like another prison? I feel like I might want another prison, actually. We're going to start expanding the area over here. So we're going to give an order to dig into the mountain there. So with all of these prisoners, I'll have enough for fighting in the arena, which is lovely, because the arena requires prisoners. It also allows me to carry out human sacrifices, which is required by some of the spicier religions. Speaking of, I did get the complaint that I didn't have enough arenas, so let's try and plonk down a few of those as well in areas where they might please enough people. If we can find a place to squeeze it in, that is. Well, we can put a fighting pit next to the nurseries. Yep, that sounds reasonable. Teach the children early that life is fleeting and occasionally very, very cheap. And we'll place one in this district too. Now, arenas are pretty goddamn expensive, particularly the Grand Arena, but it makes people very happy to see a little bit of violence every now and then, so we shall give them what they desire. Speaking of, I can probably enslave most of the new guys. 96. Well, we'll keep it at that for now, and we're going to pop on to the overworld here, and we're going to have a look at our neighboring civilization. So over here we have Warskral. It's got a garrison of 597, which is a pretty damn decent little number, but we would prefer for them to rally out against us, so I'd like to attack them with not too many people. Let's see if we can create an army over here. Right, what kind of mercenaries are we looking at, since I do have plenty of money? Ooh, Garthrimis, not bad. They are natural fighters. We've got some decent archers. Range training is ass, actually, but they've got decent ranged weaponry. Alright, we'll buy this bunch here. We'll recruit them. Alright, that gives us me a little neat human army of 450 odd. Okay, not too bad. We're going to dispatch these against the enemy's territory in a nice little blitzkrieg campaign. It's going to take a lot of my money, but that's fine. Luckily, that's enough to get them to rally out against me, and we're going to engage. Because the game has a fully functional real-time combat system as well, a little inspired by Total War, in fact. You can see here, we've got the formations on the map. These are my guys, and over here, we've got the enemy, which seem to be made up, basically exclusively of just peasantry, unarmed, poorly equipped peasantry, and some defensive catapults to help them out in the field battle. Alright, in circumstances like these, I definitely want to use the fact that I've got way more ranged weapon than them. I'm going to take some fire from the catapults, but that is probably not the worst thing in the world, honestly. So we're going to line them up. Right. I've got lots of range on basically all of them, except for this one unit, which is very short range. So we're gonna keep him here. We're gonna move him a little closer. March him up. You can also put them in tight formation if you wish to be more defensive about it. Currently, I don't really need to worry about that just yet. Now, those are the Garthrimi, aren't they? Yes. So the Garthrimis have dick all in the way of real range potential, but they do have a little bit of ranged gear, so like javelins, basically. So we're going to send them up nice and close. I also am not particularly worried if they get engaged in combat, because the Garthrimi are naturally good fighters as a species. This is a very racist game, if you haven't been able to tell already. And maybe want to get a little bit closer to make sure we're properly in range, that big unit there. And we're just going to spend a little bit of time firing at the enemy. Now, the enemy have no real ranged units of their own right now, but they're also very poorly trained, so they're likely to just sit and take it and hope that their catapults can even the score. Now, one thing I've noticed about catapults is the AI thinks catapults are way more valuable than they are, and they really aren't. Like, if you've got good catapult crews and good placements, you can do a lot of damage with them. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're going to see some red furrows be carved through my dudes in not too long. But compared to the ability to just stand off and blast them like this is far more effective. In fact, the AI is much better on the offensive than on the defensive like this, because on the defensive, it has a nasty habit of just kind of, oh, yeah, there you see, that's the first rock, of just standing there and eating it. Whereas on the offensive, oh, they will try to flank you, and they will attack you rather aggressively to boot, so it's not anywhere near as simple. Now, in this case, where we've actually managed to break one of their flanks, I am going to make a deep formation here on their flank to maximize the weight of my charging unit and their penetration potential. And we're going to march these over onto their flanks as well. And we are simply going to smash the last unit in melee. Now, the way melee works is you need to actually issue a charge command unless you want them to simply, walk into the enemy, which is far less effective. So, the moment the last unit is in position, we are going to order the charge, and your units will then pick up actual momentum and speed, and then hit the enemy and deal damage based on it, and they might also penetrate the enemy's formation depending on their mass. If you penetrate their formations, you get to attack each one of their dudes with more of your dudes, thereby doing way, way more damage. The The shock of the charge is very important in this game. There we go, the enemy has been shattered, nice and easy. And this, incidentally, this is a small battle, a very small battle, against one of your early initial neighbors, which don't really have all that much in the way of stuff. Alright, we got a bunch of captives out of this. We are going to take all of them, because even if we don't want to enslave them, we definitely want to keep them for the arenas and stuff. We also got a bunch of armor out of that, which is fantastic. We are now going to advance onto the city itself as well, as the spoils begin moving backwards to my city. Now, if I go over here, for example, you'll see a larger settlement. So this is just a little bit of a rinky-dink retard village, but here you've got a large settlement with a standing army, a big standing army. So it's definitely dangerous when you get a little bit more into it. So the Regent of Warscale has surrendered, open their gates. As people trust you will be lenient, what will you do with them? So you can burn the entire place to the ground if you so choose, and get a lot of captives. Like, the amount of slaves you can get late game, and need, frankly, is hilarious. But for right now, I don't need all of their shit. I really don't need all of their shit. I do want more slaves, however. So we are going to be trying to occupy the settlement, but do a little bit of sacking. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Not full-on mercy, because, again, I do want some slaves, and I do want more Crotonian slaves, specifically. And the battle, just not quite satisfying enough, frankly. So we're going to enslave the entire Crotonian population, but we're going to leave the rest, because, well, I'm incredibly racist, frankly. And we're going to take a little bit of loot. Frankly, I don't need any of this, but, you know, I'm sure I can find a use for the grain and the leather and the tiny bit of opium, I guess. And we're going to set that up to be occupied as well. There you go. So, now Warscale becomes one of my regions, which means I need to try and measure, fix their loyalty and stuff like that. You know, problematic things, nonsense things. I also need to tax them, and I need to run their administration, which needs, need administrative score. Now, the population itself will produce a little bit of administration for me, but most of my administration is actually going to come from my own city. Now, having used the mercenaries, I see no reason to keep them, so I'm going to disband them, and I'm going to disband the army as well. So, administration actually come from this building right here, which consumes paper from 100 scribes to give me administration score. The administration score is used mostly in my city to increase things like infrastructure, sanitation, education, entertainment, etc. Now that I've also have another area, I'm going to need to look into increasing my administration score, because obviously I want to give them a better garrison, otherwise they'll get overrun by rebels and all kinds of nasty stuff. I also am going to need to organize their order fairly soon as well, so there is a lot of things to be done in this little settlement right here. There you go. Much better name for the region, frankly. And that might also... Is there a haven in this place? I don't think there was. No. Okay. Oh. There'll be a decent amount of resource, and it'll be a decent amount of new servants for the pets, which is what I frankly need right now. My presence is a little bit, it's a little bit overflowing at the moment. Let's increase the number of slavers, shall we? And, the number of prison guards as well. I have a feeling we're gonna need them, frankly. Yes. Also, since I did defeat them in war, you know, a couple of people... We're going to send a couple of people over to the gallows, I think. Just to make sure that people have got a decent idea of what's going on here. Yeah. We don't want them to think I'm too soft, now would we? That'd be terrible. You know? Think of what they might think of me. They might try and attack me, or have idiotic notions of freedom and liberty and such stinky-winky nonsense. No. We shall send at least a few of them to the gallows, where they will provide entertainment for the masses, and additionally... send a message to everybody else involved. Yes, this is preferable. Now, we do have an actual gallows down here, as you can see as well, where they put little heads on spikes to give a bit of fear to the local populace. Which, yes, fear is a resource. Dread is, in fact, a resource. And certain civilizations actually love it. Which is why I'm thinking of starting to inviting some Garthremis to my city. The problem is that racism is also actually another mechanic in the game, and certain species do not get along, which might see the violent crime statistic bloom rather drastically and quickly, so you want to be a little bit careful about how many people you start introducing into your citizenship. God damn, we have too many prisoners and not enough space for them. I should have considered that first, shouldn't I? Oh well, they're very cooperative, they'll hang around for a little bit first, and I am opening up new slots continuously by enslaving vast numbers of them. In fact, you know what? Just staff it to capacity for now, shall we? We've got quite a lot of slaves to process, you see, so start chinking out those foot irons for our brand new servant population. And with this, I should have no problems finding willing servants to work in my cotton fields anymore. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It'll also, slowly but surely, up my population numbers as well. Now, as your population increases, you also gain various new abilities like access to nobles, for example. Nobles are super duper duper useful because they allow you to get certain bonuses to your civilization overall. As you can see, I've got 8 nobles here, giving me bonuses to mining, for example, or to carpentry, or to breeding programs, etc., etc. You only gain nobles by upgrading the size of your settlement. So you can see that here, the next step is 4,000 people. Citizens, mind you. I've only got 3,200 citizens at the moment. The slaves, sadly, don't count. Well, sadly. Unsurprisingly, I guess. But they can be put to work in the mushroom farms. Which, judging by my severe lack of mushrooms, I think I'm going to need a lot more mushroom farms as well. Gosh darn it. Well, I've got a lot of odd jobbers and a lot of slave labor right now, so we might as well start hollowing out enormous quantities of mountain to give me more houses. Actually, we should make these into proper longhouses, since they will be primarily serviced by the slave population, and then we'll start working on more mushroom fields. I'll just slap down a couple room copier entrances like that. Actually, that one was a little bit off, wasn't it? Yes. I'll remove those jobs. Smart remove. There you go. Game can be a tiny pinch finicky to begin with. It requires things to be done in a certain order, and if it's not done in that certain order, the game can get a little bit derpy with you, but considering the sheer amount of mechanics and the complexity of it all, I am more than happy to forgive the video game for its occasional little quirks here and there. And we'll make a nice little communication tunnel, and we'll make one down here. And I'm going to need some services in the area, so we'll start hollowing out a nice area for that as well. A few cantinas and a few little niceties, because even slaves, you know, they deserve at least the bare minimum. They deserve, you know, stuff like food and a little bit of clothing, so to keep them semi-healthy. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go and fetch a lot more slaves, and frankly, warfare is goddamn expensive. I had $1 million, now down to 719,000. And that's only using mercenaries, which you cannot have enough mercenaries later on, which means you're going to need to produce the actual stuff. And look at all of this. There are thousands of pieces of equipment gathered here, and this is only enough to maybe supply a few hundred men in the field. The amount of shit you need when you're mobilizing entire armies is, frankly, rather astounding, honestly. You need a lot of stuff. Now, the construction programs are also going ahead. We are beginning to finish up a crypt up here, which will give far more dignified burial arrangements to my Dondorians, who don't like being put to rest in a regular graveyard. They're a bit fancied about all of these things. They prefer crypts. Unfortunately, crypts require fine-cut stones and gems, so they're ludicrously expensive, but Dondorians are also really good craftsmen and can severely boost your output, so we'll abide by their ridiculous little notions of needing to be put to sleep in specifically shaped coffins, at least for now. And the temple, too, should start getting underway. Yes, it is. It'll look quite nice once it's finally done. I'm probably going to need to up the population. As you can see here, I am currently severely underhoused, particularly the slave population. I'm going to require about 250 more houses, in fact. I really wish the game would allow you to build tall, honestly, because being able to only build like small apartments like this is a bit of a bother when it comes to actually housing everyone after a while, but we'll start digging yet further into the mountains and seeing if we can't placate as much of the population as possible. We can also, of course, make dedicated slave barracks, which is, I'm definitely going to have some up here since the mushroom farms require quite a lot of workers. And I might also be able to simply increase the amount of workers I have down here to better utilize the space I've already got available. Now, at the moment, the primary people who need housing are actually in the industrial sector, so I'm going to need to increase housing in these areas first and foremost. There's not a lot of places to actually put down houses, honestly. This is where adequate city planning would be worthwhile, but, well, I skipped that class, so not to worry. I do still have some room over here, though, so I'm not panicking just yet. But there is some controversy as well about the new housing arrangement, because previously, people didn't actually need houses. They just liked it if you gave them houses. And the houses were essentially large dormitories where people went to sleep. And so they would sleep a bit and then leave the dormitory, and so you didn't need that much place dedicated to housing. Whereas now, each individual actually requires a house. Now that means that the map can get awfully full of just housing in the long run, which you can fix by spreading out your industry a little bit. I've over-centralized a little bit here, honestly, or by, of course, giving them, well, shittier accommodation straight up, or by, putting them in prison. That works well, for a time, at least. And people don't get necessarily that pissed off if they don't have housing immediately, so you do have quite a lot of time to fix the problem, but their happiness will decrease quite rapidly if you don't give them houses for very long periods of time, as they have to sleep on the street. I would like it if they increase the radius of the housing a lot more, however, because currently I don't really know how far somebody is willing to go to get a job. It would be very nice to know, okay, this one has so-and-so much range, for example, and he's willing to go so-and-so far. And it would be nice if he'd be willing to go quite far, honestly, because ideally, I would like to have a huge central city with ridiculous amounts of housing and entertainment and services and guard posts and everything you need. And then the industry outside of it, because the game also simulates such things as noise, for example. So you don't want heavy industry right next to your dormitories, because people will be sad because they can't sleep at night. Unsurprisingly. So, I think increasing the range would be the best solution, because, honestly, right now the range feels like it's something like one screen length, like from this end of the screen to over here or something. Maybe that's even pushing it. It feels really, really constrained, and in reality, with great roads and stuff, there's no reason why somebody living over here couldn't be, heading over here to do their job. Whereas you can click on them, and I believe you can see their profession. So we've got scientists here. We've got still some scientists, so that's about the southernmost one. So that or up to there. So that is about the maximum range. which is really short. You could double or triple that, honestly, quite easily, and it would feel a bit more organic. It would also make it a lot easier to make proper agricultural areas like this, because this is a lot of housing, but since it doesn't reach very long, I'm only actually servicing these fields, and I don't really need all that many more employees, frankly. I could slap in, like, one more employee on average here, but they're already being serviced to near completion. If I put in one guy, you can see right now the workload is 100%. And if I do this, it's 31%, which is radically less. So the one guy really isn't necessary, but, you know, it'll help a little bit, at least. I also wouldn't mind some skyscraper technology, honestly, because you do have a tech tree. Obviously, the game has every mechanic you could possibly think of, where you can invest research points, which are continuously generated, by the way, as well, as the game also has the mechanic of forgetting knowledge. So, if your library burns to the ground, for example, then a lot of knowledge could be lost, and you are going to start forgetting technology, as technology needs to be maintained from generation to generation to generation, and continuously generated and maintained. Which means that once you invest a lot of it, currently I've allocated 260,000, the crash can be really goddamn severe, but the benefits too are enormous. For example, if I put another point into woodcuttery here, that gives me 10% more wood production overall. And seeing as I'm already producing something like, how much? 6,000 wood? I'm producing 3,000 wood, and then I'm importing another 1,000. 10% is not insignificant when you're dealing with these kinds of margins right here, obviously. I also wouldn't mind if there was a little bit, because he mentioned this game is made by like one dude, by the way, which is super impressive. That they're going to work on the siege system, because right now there's no real reason to build walls, because you have no idea where the enemy is going to arrive from, and they can literally arrive in the mountain and just chop their way through the mountain to you, RimWorld style. So choke points are kind of pointless, so I just sally out whenever I'm under siege by bandits or enemy armies. But it would be nice if, because this is the biggest sized map, it's already beginning to feel small. I already want it to be larger. I kind of want there to be a fortress game build mode, where I can have a fortification outside my city that the enemy needs to siege. That would be great, honestly. A kind of a castle build mode would be fantastic. As I mean, I could build walls all around this, but the amount of resources it would require would be stupendous, and then the enemy could simply just, you know, mine through it anyways. Not to mention the time it would take to mobilize my soldiers from one part of my city, walk them all the way over to the wall. The enemy would probably already be through it by the time I get there, which is, again, kind of the problem. So the warfare system needs some improvements, but it's already really competent, really cool. And since it simulates every single soldier, every guy you lose in a fight is, of course, a citizen you've now lost. It might be it's a trained soldier. Now you're going to have to get another one, which is going to cut into the total number of workforces, which might leave one of your buildings undermanned. And then if you need to increase production of a thing, you need more people. Right now, for example, I am going to increase the production of furniture quite drastically in the near future, as I'm hoping to make my people even happier, so I can get even more people in. As, well, I still have a lot of unexploited mountain for housing. Oh yes, the city can grow larger still, much, much larger. But I will wrap this up here. Songs of Six, a proper city builder from the ground up with every level and every level of simulation you could possibly ask for, frankly. It's an incredibly cool game. It is still being added to. The developer is doing really well, and what I like too is he does actually engage in discussions with the community too on what needs changing, what needs adding, what needs modifications, etc, etc. He seems like a pretty decent dude, frankly, and he's certainly worthy of some support. So, if you're interested, definitely check Songs of Six out, as it is a very cool and very chill game. And just look at this. Just look at all the people going about their day-to-day lives. That's just awesome. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.